Introduction, Part 2. Finding Profits on the Courthouse Steps. In 2009, I was going out of business. That might sound like an event, but going out of business is a process. It takes time. Painful, slow motion, can't sleep at night time. My partners and I were home builders, which was a great business to be in, until it wasn't. After the housing crash, everything changed, and we were left worrying about how to make payroll and pay the bills. Watching our business dry up did leave us with more time, and we used it to do what any true entrepreneur does when facing failure: look for a new business. That may sound crazy, but as you'll learn, falling in love with difficult problems is a kind of superpower. With any luck, by the end of what follows, it will be your superpower too. We had heard of people who were making money by flipping foreclosures. I was skeptical. It had a vague, get-rich-quick feel to it. Still, it was related to the skills and experience we had, and I thought it was worth looking into. It was certainly better than feeling powerless as our business slowly evaporated. The people we knew were finding homes listed on the local MLS, or multiple listing service, a database of properties for sale. The idea was simple enough. Find a home that someone had stopped making payments on, buy it cheap, then fix it up and resell it for a higher price. What, we thought, could be any easier? After all, we were home builders. We were experts at this kind of thing. How hard could it be? Harder than we thought. We spent hours, then days, then weeks trying to buy foreclosed properties through MLS listings. There were 5 of us, and we wrote hundreds of offers. We made offers with no conditions. We made offers in cash. We did everything you could think of that you would normally do to buy a damn house on the MLS. Not one offer was accepted. A different kind of foreclosure listing. At the time, foreclosure was a word we were hearing a lot. It was 2009, and people were losing their homes every day. Still, we had only the most basic understanding of what foreclosure meant and how it worked. As we understood it, when someone stopped making their mortgage payments, the bank eventually took possession of their home. That meant the loan had been foreclosed on, and the homeowner lost their property to the lender. That was essentially true, but it didn't explain why we couldn't seem to buy one of those houses people had stopped paying for. We were utterly confused. What we didn't realize at the time was that we were trying to buy homes in the wrong place. Not place as in geography, but place as in the wrong point in the timeline of the foreclosure process. When a foreclosure is listed by a realtor on the MLS, anyone can see it, and they can do so from the comfort of their home. The MLS is where everyone is looking. The competition for properties is high, and as we soon realized, the realtors listing those properties already had preferred clients they were working with. We simply couldn't find our way in. We had no idea there was a whole different arena for foreclosure sales. Places where properties were bought before they ever made it out into the wider public eye. The aha moment. As luck would have it, one of my partners discovered that a property right beside his was listed for foreclosure. Curious, we tried to find out more, but the property was nowhere to be found on the MLS. It wasn't online anywhere. The only information we had to work with was the physical foreclosure notice at the home itself. It listed a date when the property would be sold at auction and an address where the sale would happen. The address turned out to be the local courthouse. That was when the light bulb went on. Suddenly, it made sense. There was a whole world of properties being sold at auction before they were ever picked up by real estate agents or listed on the MLS. We'd been swimming in a sea of competing buyers when the real deals were happening upstream. They were happening earlier in the foreclosure timeline. We went to an auction the very next day. We weren't there to buy, just to observe. The problem was that it was difficult to tell exactly what we were seeing. It was an oddly informal process. As far as we could tell, only a couple of buyers were there, and the closest thing to someone in charge was a guy who stood there and read out a list of information. We tried to ask how it worked, but no one really wanted to tell us. At the time, there was no how-to resource we could turn to. With only days to go until the auction on the place we'd found, we'd have to figure it out for ourselves. I spent the next 2 days in the county recorder's office reading every document I could find on the property we were interested in. We did our own title searches to be confident that we knew exactly who owned the property and who was owed money for it. I read page after page of legalese. Eventually, I decided, we can do this. The courthouse steps. Our first auction experience was nothing short of bizarre. I still look back at it with a mix of amusement and shock. We arrived at the courthouse at the appointed time, but had no idea where to go or what to do. Instead, we just hung around the courthouse steps in a corner near the entrance. There was just us, a few other people who we assumed were also there to buy property, and a garbage can. That was it. A few minutes later, I looked up to see a guy in a t-shirt and shorts roll up to us on a skateboard. He hopped off, pulled a laptop out of his bag, and set it on the garbage can. A moment later, he began reading off property details, and a couple of other guys began bidding. That was all there was to it. It was as casual as stepping up to a food truck and ordering a taco. The fifth listing of the day was the one we were interested in. Skateboard guy read off the address along with a few details. The opening bid is $215,000, he said. There was silence. No one said anything in response to the opening bid, including me. At that point, I was still in shock that a guy who arrived by skateboard and set up his office on a garbage can was auctioning off honest-to-God houses. Going once, skateboard guy said. Going twice. Our partner snapped to attention. We'd like to bid. At this point, it was pretty clear we were new to the process. He said to us, Would you like to bid a penny over? Yes, we said uncertainly. Do you have your cashier's checks? He asked, making no effort to hide his skepticism. In fact, we did have our checks. We'd learned early on that you have to pay in cash with the precise amount. More on that later. And we held out the envelope we'd received at the bank after scraping together every dollar we could round up. Sold, he said. Immediately, a gasp went up from the strangers around me. The same people who had just been confidently snapping up properties like they were tacos now began to stare at us and whisper. I felt my face flush. Had we just made a mistake? Had we bought a property we shouldn't have? What had we just done? I could feel my heart pound as I signed over our cashier's checks. Skateboard guy handed me a receipt. I looked at it. It had almost no information on it, not even the address of the property that, I hoped, we had just bought. Is this it? I asked. That's it. But this is just a receipt. There's no address, no anything. How do I know what we just bought? Oh, he said, closing his laptop. We don't do any of that. We don't guarantee the addresses. We just sell the properties. You'll get your deed in the mail." And with that, he hopped on his skateboard and pushed off. I looked down at the receipt of paper in my hand. As he turned the corner, I thought, that's all the money we have. What had I just done? Aftermath. We spent the next 2 weeks in a state of near panic, my nights more sleepless than ever. I kept thinking back to the gasps I heard when we bought the property. What did that mean? Why hadn't anyone else bid? I had just spent the last of our money on something I wasn't even sure we owned. Even if we had bought the property, I was now lying awake at night worrying that there was something deeply wrong with it. Had someone trashed it? Was it a burnt-out shell? Was it built on an ancient cemetery? I kept berating myself. How could I have given all our money to a guy on a skateboard? It turned out I had worried for nothing. 2 weeks later, the deed to the property arrived in the mail. We immediately had it entered at the recorder's office. Then, just to be extra sure, we got a new title report showing that we own the property free and clear. All my worries about the property itself were wasted too. It was just fine, and we were able to sell it right away at a significant profit to someone who, as we had been a few weeks earlier, was trying to buy foreclosed properties on the local MLS. I was elated. We'd pulled it off. Not only had we made money, but we could do it again. We'd finally found a way into the exclusive club where properties were selling at a discount. That night, I slept like a baby. An exhausted, relieved, financially solvent baby. In the coming months, we repeated that success and repeated it again, buying properties at big discounts right on the courthouse steps. There wasn't always a guy on a skateboard, but it was always exciting. We began to refocus our investment energy almost entirely on buying at auction. We bought even more properties, discovering that we could buy them and flip them, sometimes the same day, or that we could keep them and rent them out. Or we could add value by fixing them up and then selling them for an even bigger profit. It was, and still is, a thrill beyond anything else I'd experienced in real estate. Your backstage pass to real estate investment. Much of the thrill of buying at auction comes from getting more exclusive access to properties. Buying on the courthouse steps represents the early phase of the foreclosure process. It's the backstage pass of real estate. Instead of waiting in the long MLS line out on the street, you sneak past the velvet ropes and through the back door, and suddenly everything changes. Instead of being one more face in a massive crowd, you're in a small group of rock and rollers. Instead of hoping to get a seat at the back, you're already in, and you get the best view of the show for less money. That's the advantage of buying at auction. You get access to properties long before most people even know they're for sale, and at a price lower than you'd pay anywhere else. The goal of this book is to give you that same backstage pass to the world of real estate. The path ahead. Our job in the pages that follow is to make sure you feel comfortable finding, analyzing, and bidding on your first foreclosed property right on the courthouse steps. To reach that goal, here are a few of the things you'll find in the chapters that follow. You'll learn to understand the foreclosure process and all the distinct advantages of buying property at auction. You'll develop the skills to find, analyze, and select the ideal properties to bid on, those that fit your goals and leave you a significant financial safety margin. We'll walk you through every step of how to attend an auction, bid in real time, and buy a property. Along the way, of course, we'll cover a wide range of other critical steps, like building your team, dealing with money, and managing your own mind and emotions. You'll hear stories, both good and bad, based on our own experiences and those of other seasoned auction buyers. Best of all, you'll build the confidence to know that you can succeed at investing in foreclosures. The biggest thrill in real estate. Buying at auction gives you the one thing that every investor wants: the opportunity to buy at a lower price, to get value for your money. We've spent a lot of time in the real estate business. Together, we've bought thousands of properties and been involved in more transactions and real estate deals than we can count. We've had our fingers in just about every aspect of the real estate business. And one thing I can tell you for sure is this: there's nothing like buying foreclosures at auction. Nothing in real estate is as exhilarating as bidding live on a property, then walking away knowing you made a great investment. Here's to your first profit on the courthouse steps. Aaron Amachistegi, CEO of Roddy's Foreclosure Listing Service in Sacramento, California.